You're listening to Search the Scriptures Daily, a program in which we encourage everyone who desires to know God's truth to look to God's Word for all that is essential for salvation and living one's life in a way that is pleasing to Him. If you're a first-time listener or viewer, or perhaps you haven't tuned in for a while, and the topic we've been discussing for a number of weeks now in this first segment of our program is psychology in the church. Dave, last week, as you know, we were discussing the men who are considered the pillars of psychotherapy, Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Carl Rogers, Abraham Maslow, and others. And we were doing that in the light of Psalm 1, particularly regarding verse 1, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly." And then we reviewed the lives of these men, and it wasn't pretty. Extramarital affairs, drug abuse, depression, heavy occultism, sexual perversion, suicide, and on and on.
They are definitely the ungodly.
Yeah. And yet the world, and now professing Christians, are to look to them for solutions to solve their problems of living? I mean, that alone is a bit of lunacy. Dave, what I'd like to do in this segment is to get back on solid ground. We looked at Psalm 1, verse 1, to underscore the admonition, again, that we're not to walk in the counsel of the ungodly.
I want to make sure that all the listeners get the application, because these ungodly men, that's the basis of Christian psychology.
Right.
So Christian psychologists are literally walking in the counsel of the ungodly and bringing it in to the church and justifying it under the idea, well, all truth is God's truth. Freud had some, and Rogers, and well, they've got more than that as far as these men are concerned. It's the foundation of Christian psychology. It didn't come out of the Bible. It came out of the godless writings of these ungodly men.
Dave, I listened to a classic interview that you had with Walter Martin. And I would say Walter definitely favored, Christian psychology and so on. That's the impression I got from the interview. And by the way, if our listeners would like to hear that interview, we have it posted on our website.
Let me explain just a little bit about it.
Okay.
Walter and I had a number of disagreements: psychotherapy, acupuncture, and hypnosis, and a few other things. But anyway, he invited me to come on his program, and he said, we'll just talk about things that we agree on. Well, they were going to ambush me, and I brought nothing. I got no notes. I have my Bible, and here come his staff with stacks of stuff. They've been investigating to try to find some flaw in what I teach.
Well,
and they had a lot of criticism.
Well, it had to do with the seduction of Christianity.
Right.
They were pretty upset with some of the, the way we went about the book and some of the individuals that we addressed in the book, because they were friends in a sense. So go ahead.
No, that's okay. But anyway, so it turned out, no, that wasn't what it was about at all. He seemed to be trying to trip me up or shoot me down. I don't know. I haven't listened to the...
But, Dave, the impression you get from listening to the tape, I mean, you're very gracious to him, and he seems gracious to you on the air. And but, he had some tough questions for you. But anyway, it's worth listening to. If anybody wants to listen to it, we have it posted, as I said, on our website. You might find it interesting. Dave, to go back to this, we are not to walk in the counsel of the ungodly. And I find it, I guess the point I was trying to make with regard to Walter Martin, you guys discussed all truth is God's truth. And he was really hammering that idea that there is truth out there. But the thing I find almost ironic is that whoever brings that, they never talk about the other issues, the ungodliness of these men, the concepts, how anti-biblical they are. But somehow we're going to find some kernel or some nugget of truth with regard to what they say. Although these men, as we pointed out in the last couple of weeks, you couldn't prove it by their lives.
Now, Tom, you remember what happened at Dallas Theological Seminary. I was I used to speak over there now and then, believe it or not.
That was way back.
Yeah, way back. And this was a brown bag lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And the students would bring their lunch, and then they would sit in during their lunch hour, and you get someone talking to them. And I was talking about psychology. And what made me think of it is what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, why dredge through the muck and mire of psychological theories to come up with some golden nugget of truth? And everybody started laughing. And I didn't realize I just made a little faux pas, it was a Freudian slip.
Yeah.
Because two of their heroes there were Menrith and Meyer.
Well, they weren't just their heroes. Those men were on staff.
Yes,
they were
right.
involved in the, believe it or not, in the pastoral counseling department.
Christian psychiatrists.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, what I'd like to do is go through Psalm 1. Let's go through it line by line. I'll read the entire psalm. It's only six verses. But I want to get away from, as you said, the muck and mire here. I want to get into what God's Word says, because that's what we're encouraging in this series of programs, that God's Word is sufficient. And all of this is at least undermining the sufficiency of God's Word. So,
By the way, walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. And Watchman Nee wrote what as I recall, was a pretty good book called Sit, Walk, Stand. Mm-hmm. And he took it from this passage.
Okay. Well, to begin, Psalm 1, verse 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish.
So there's an awful lot in that psalm.
There is. And I'd like to go over them, Dave. I mean, I think let's spend some really fruitful time in regard to what the Lord has to say. So, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. And Dave, I think there's a progression here.
Right.
If we're listening, or if we're listening to the counsel of the ungodly, then we are hanging out with sinners. We are maybe taking in what they have to say, and then I think that's going to turn our heart. Then when we hear the truth, wouldn't that make me scornful? Oh, well, that's not for me, or no, that's too legalistic, or one thing or another.
Yeah, well, you're walking along. You've apparently have something in common, maybe going in the same direction, and you're having fellowship with one another. Standeth, now you stopped, standeth in the way of sinners. And then the next thing you know, well, this is going on and on. I need to sit. And sitteth in the seat of the scornful. Paul says in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, I think it's verse 2, he asks for prayer that the Lord will deliver me, he says, from wicked and unreasonable men, for all men have not faith. Mm-hmm. If you don't have faith in God, you're going to be wicked.
For more information about the Berean Call, call us toll-free at our order number or visit our website,